Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted more happiness, success, and abundance in your new year, then do we have the Emotion Code show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Bradley Nelson, holistic chiropractic physician and medical intuitive, and the creator of my all-time favorite and most used energy healing system, and the author of my absolute favorite healing book on the planet, bar none. And you know I've had a lot of books on the show, and guests for that matter, one that rarely leaves my side, the Emotion Code. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about using Emotion Code techniques to set yourself up for well-being, success, and financial happiness and abundance in the new year. That, plus we'll talk about the danger of heart walls, emotional traumas, a sacred calling, what on earth is an idea allergy, and what in the world does Dr. Marcus Welby have to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Brad. Are you ready to shine?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on your show again. It's great to be here.
It is so great to have you here. It seems like just about an annual occurrence now, and just around the time for the holidays. And I actually think it's a really great gift. Ooh, I hadn't thought of it that way. To learn how to do Emotion Code on yourself and probably those you love this time of year.
Boy, no kidding. It's so much better than getting a tie or a pair of socks.
I couldn't agree more. Or even the stray cardigan if you're not a cardigan wearer.
Right.
Before we dive right into things, we're not going to go over your total history. We've covered that before, but we are going to go over a few highlights. First off, what does computer programming have to do with anything?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. When I was 7 years old, I was healed miraculously of the measles because my father and mother, my father was actually praying for me and I was instantly healed. I had this change that started at the top of my head and went whoosh through my body. I was supposed to go into the hospital the next day, but I was instantly healed. And I learned from that there's a higher power that we're not necessarily aware of, but that we can ask for help and we can receive help. And so the computer programming, how that plays into all of this really was that I got in the habit of asking that higher power, God, source energy, however you want to refer to it, to guide my life. And it was a habitual thing. You know, every day I would just say, God, please guide my life. Help me to make the most of my life. And I think that he knows how to do that better than we do. And so what happened was I took a class in computer programming in 1980, and I was absolutely just bitten by the bug. And I became a computer programmer. And I thought that's what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. And then something that my father said to me brought me up short on that career. And the career that I had always really wanted to do from the time I was 13 years old was to become a healer, because I was healed of kidney disease that I had that was 50% fatal, and it was extremely painful. But I was healed by a couple of holistic physicians. So I decided that's, at that time, age 13, that's what I wanted to do with my life. Well, I got sidetracked and discovered computers and was going into business and so on. And then my father brought me back to that dream that I had had.
How did he do that?
How? Well, what he did, we were sitting around, it was Christmas time in Great Falls, Montana, where I'm from. We were sitting around with my mother and father, my wife and I, and my dad, totally out of the blue, said to me, "Are you sure that you don't want to go to chiropractic school, because it seems like a great career and you've always wanted to do that?" And I said, no, I'm going this other direction. I was about 6 months away from going into the MBA program, the Master's in Business program at Brigham Young University. And I was majoring in international relations and computer science and so on. And I said, no, I'm going this other direction. And I thought I had it all figured out. And he said, well, why don't you think about it one more time? And those words were probably the most important words ever spoken to me in my whole entire life, because I thought I had my life. I was going this direction. And now he had brought me back to this former dream that I had of becoming a healer. So I made up a pro and con list with my wife of these two different pathways. And that still wasn't convincing. So having learned that there's a higher power, I got on my knees that night and I prayed. And I said, Father in heaven, if you have anything to say about this, help me to know what to do, because I'll do either way. I was totally open. And so that night I had this experience where I was awakened 3 different times. And each time that I was awakened, I found my mind was full of these warm, happy thoughts about healing, how great it is to be able to heal people naturally and serve people and so on. And I'd wake up and feel all those feelings. And then I'd think, well, yeah, but computers, and I'd fall back asleep. So that happened 3 times that night.
Yeah.
So the next day, I still don't know what to do. I'm still not convinced. I'm on my knees the next night praying, asking God to guide me and help me. And on the second night, I had an experience that really totally changed my life. And it's turned out to, be changing the lives of many, many people all over the world. What happened was on the second night, I was awakened 3 different times again. But each time that I was awakened, the feelings were geometrically more powerful. It was like on a logarithmic scale. And on the third time on that second night, when I was awakened, the thoughts of service to mankind and humanity and the whole entire planet, it was absolutely overwhelming. I can't even describe it. And right then I actually heard a voice that spoke to me. And it said, this is a sacred calling. And I as clear as a bell. And so I knew that was the answer. I got my answer. I said, okay, that's great. And then I went to school. And when I got out of school, I got in the habit. I'd become a doctor. Now I have people coming to see me. And I got in the habit of asking for help from up above with each person that I saw. And it was a totally private, totally personal thing, right? And nobody ever knew that I was doing that. But when people would come in to see me, I would just take a moment before I'd work on them, and I would try to make that connection with that higher power and ask for help. And I'll tell you something, Michael. I've learned one thing in my life, and that is that higher power, if you ask, you will receive. And there were times during those years when somebody would come in to see me. During the last 10 years that I was in practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was no cure for them available at all. And so they're coming to see me, and sometimes I didn't know how to approach their problems. And there were times when I would offer that silent prayer when the information would literally just flood into me like an avalanche of just pure data and understanding about, okay, here's how to conceive of this, and here's how to help this person, and here's what's really going on with this person. And that didn't happen all the time, but it did happen from time to time. And so it was a fascinating thing, and I was just trying to help my patients. That's all I was trying to do, and I was trying to get help from that higher power because I figured that higher power is smarter than me. And so as time went on, one of the things that I learned was that our emotional baggage makes us sick. It's the biggest underlying cause of all the symptoms we suffer from, whether they're physical or mental or emotional. And so the computer programming thing came into play, because that was part of it. When I look back on my life, like Steve Jobs said, he said, when you look back, if you're following your heart, you can't connect the dots looking forward into the future, but you can connect the dots looking back into the past. And when I look back into my past, I can see how I was guided each step of the way. That computer programming knowledge that I needed, of course, I still use now all the time, but during those years that I was in practice, it helped me because it gave me a paradigm to understand the subconscious mind, which is basically the most powerful computer that we know of. And it is a computer. And so I was always trying to combine the silicon computer with the biological carbon-based computer that was in people's bodies. And I eventually was able to do that. And that's a system that we call the body code, which includes the emotion code. The body code is a way to basically open the subconscious mind like a book and figure out exactly what's going on with somebody on every level. If they've got a parasite or some kind of infection or a misaligned bone or a nutritional deficiency or some kind of toxin or whatever it might be, you can find those things because the subconscious mind knows with a perfect understanding what's really wrong with you. And if you have symptoms of any kind, whether they might be physical, like migraine headaches, maybe you've got neck pain or back pain, maybe you've got infertility or asthma or digestive disorders, maybe you're dealing with depression or phobias or panic attacks or PTSD or eating disorders or self-sabotage. It doesn't matter. Whatever the symptom is, your subconscious mind knows with a perfect understanding why you're experiencing those symptoms. And so what the body code does is it enables us to actually just open the subconscious mind like a book and read it and figure out what's really going on and fix the underlying causes. So anyway, that's how that was a very long story. That's how the computer programming came into play in my life. See, so I needed that.
Beautiful. And we are fortunate for it. That is a woohoo!
Woohoo is right.
So let's talk real briefly about how you left your chiropractic work to begin your body code and emotion code work. And then we'll dive into the nitty gritty around abundance. But this had to be, you definitely seem to listen to a higher power. I pray before each show. I pray before each coaching client, any work, before anything and everything I do, I pray. I never thought of myself as a camel to this moment, but I guess I am a camel. Start the day praying, end the day praying. To me, it is so important. What was it like for you to take that leap of faith, shall I say, and say, I'm going out into the unknown?
Well, it was an interesting thing. What happened was a couple of years before I left my practice, which was in 2004, my wife was reading. She was reading the scriptures, and she came across this verse that just kind of popped off the page to her. And it said, you basically need to sell everything that you have, and I'm taking you to someplace completely different. Mm-hmm. And she knew that that was a message for us that was coming right off of that page. And so she showed me, and I also knew, okay, that's what we have to do. So it was really interesting. So we sold our house. We had a boat. We sold our boat. We basically got rid of everything that we had, and we didn't know where we were going. And we kind of wanted to go to Washington, or we were living in California at the time. We wanted to move to Washington or Oregon. My mother was living in St. George, Utah, mm-hmm. and we'd been there before. We didn't really want to move there. But as we continued to ask where we were going, it just gradually became clear when we would think about moving anywhere else except St. George, Utah, we just didn't feel good. And we'd think about moving to St. George, we felt really happy. So anyway, it turned out to be a great thing, and we're still here. Well, I want to share, just as an aside, I have to share a story with you about this, how, we were getting ready to leave, right? Mm-hmm. The truck was coming in about, I think, in another day or so, and we had this old car. Well, it wasn't that old, but it was a car that my daughter had used. She hadn't used it in about 6 months. It was sitting in our driveway, mm-hmm. and it didn't look that great. It was kind of dirty and so on. Well, the Sunday before we left, my wife was sitting with me. We were at church, and all of a sudden she gets this feeling that she has to go home right now. Mm-hmm. So she listens to that. We get that little voice that speaks to us, right? She heard that little voice. And she went home, drove home, and as she was pulling up to our house, there was a man who had been at our door, and he was walking away from our door. Mm-hmm. And she got out of her car, and she said, "Can I help you?" And he said, well, he didn't know what to say. He was really embarrassed, but here's the story. He said that his sister lived in another city, and she had left her abusive husband. And she'd come down to stay with him, and she was trying to find a car. And she said they'd been just driving randomly all over the place. And when they drove by our house, she said, "You need to stop and go up to that house." No, there was no sign on this car at all, nothing. But she said, "You need to stop here, and I want you to go up and knock on the door, see if anybody's home." And so that it was totally random. We ended up actually giving this woman this car. And I mean, it ran. It wasn't that great of a car, but it ran. And it was able to help her get around. But think about that. Think about the synchronicity there. My wife gets this message, gets up, goes home. Here they are. Just that's the kind of thing that can happen with, in your life if you are listening to that little voice, mm-hmm. and especially as you start to get rid of the emotional baggage that you have, it's much easier to hear that little voice, I think. And we have people who have told us that especially when their heart wall is removed, that for the first time in their lives, they can actually feel God's love for them and so on. So it's really pretty amazing. Anyway, I thought you might enjoy that story.
Woohoo! I love it. I love how, whether we call it universe, source, God, love, works in such mysterious and synchronous ways. And when we can get that chatter down and remove those blockages, how we can hear. And I call it road magic, because it tends to happen more when we're out on the open road, when we don't need to be somewhere at a specific moment or time, that we hear those things more clearly. The synchronicities pop up before us.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And, your life can be like that, where it just feels kind of like you're riding the wave. Mm-hmm. That's how it is for my wife and I. It's like we go from one synchronicity thing to another, and we just look at each other and we're just kind of continually amazed.
So we're supposed to be moving. We're moving to Colorado this coming spring. I was mentioning this briefly before the show. And we're going to check out Roaring Forks Valley, somewhere between Glenwood Springs and Aspen. My heart's calling to Aspen. That will take a little bit of manifestation work, and we're going to do some of this work here in a second. But tickets into Aspen Airport traditionally cost $1,000 more than getting into Denver. It's a small airport. It's very, very pricey. And so we hadn't even looked for the possibility of going into Aspen. So today I say to Jessica, book a ticket. Get yourself a ticket to Denver, rent a car, get in. And she comes running up to the studio just a few minutes before we start. She goes, "You're never going to believe this. When I factor in the gas, I found a less expensive ticket to Aspen. When I factor in the gas, it's almost the same price to fly into Aspen." And I'm going, cool. Wasn't the $1,000 more at this one moment? I'm like, book it now. Don't wait. Now, this moment. Yeah. And it feels good. So I'm sitting here enjoying the interview, fully present with you. But when I hear your experience of St. George, and I've been to St. George, my cousin, I coached him through he did Ironman there a bunch of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And the red sand rock or sandstone is beautiful. But when I hear you saying that, and I hear about her getting a ticket, I'm going, you follow this guidance, you listen, you pull this golden thread, and it will take you someplace very special if you're kind of humble and quiet, don't think that you know it all, and just follow along. Follow the breadcrumbs that are put out before you.
Yep, absolutely. It's interesting because most of the time, I think for most of us, it's difficult for us to hear that little voice because we're so busy. We've got so much going on. For me in my life, I know often that's been the case for me. And so what'll happen with me oftentimes is first thing in the morning, as I'm just waking up, those messages will often come to me. And so you want to have a piece of, have a pad of paper and a pencil by the side of your bed, because those ideas that come to you early in the morning, I think those are really, really important. And if you write those down, then you've got them. But if you don't, a few minutes will go by and you'll forget.
We have a book coming out this spring called The Awe Experience, and it's about how to sit down, go quiet first thing in the morning, and allow those words to come to you, and to journal and write those out and be able to hear that guidance. And that to us is as important as oxygen. That's God as co-pilot helping us to know what to do for the day, what's most important, are we on track, are we off track, and to give us a perspective that's outside and greater than ourselves that we just can't get with the thinking mind.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's interesting how if you actually start to take time and think every day about how God or that higher power, the creator, has blessed your life in that day, how have you seen the hand of God in your life that day? What will happen is you'll start to recognize more and more how that hand of God is working in your life, and things that you otherwise would totally have missed, you'll connect with. And it's like what we were talking about before, the synchronicities and the tender mercies of God that happen to us, that bless our lives, that oftentimes we don't pay attention to because we're so busy. We've always, we're always listening to something. We're listening to music on the radio. We're watching TV. We're talking to people. You need to take time to kind of chill and meditate and allow those little messages and those remembrances to come to you.
Absolutely. So let's dive from here and let's talk about abundance, something that I've wanted to talk with you about for years, and it is fascinating to me. How can we use emotion code to help cultivate more financial abundance in our lives?
Well, I'll tell you something. I believe that our natural state is to be in a state of abundance. Now, why do I think that? Well, because I believe that we came from a place of total abundance. You know, I had an experience when I was 18 years old. I was sitting one day meditating quietly, and all of a sudden, it was like this window opened, this window of remembrance of where I came from. And I believe we all came from this place where we lived with God in this place of perfect love and harmony and abundance and anything that we needed. It was a vibrational level that was completely out of sight compared to where we are now, right? And what happened was, it wasn't that I could remember anything specific, but this window opened, and somehow every atom, every particle of my being suddenly was filled with the most impossibly powerful feeling of homesickness that I can't even describe. It was so completely off the scale that it was a good thing it only lasted for a few seconds, because it would have been completely unbearable. It lasted about 3 seconds. And then that window closed, and it left me reeling with awe. And I realized a couple of things. I realized that when people say that we're strangers here in this world, that's absolutely true. And the other thing is that when we come into this world, we have this, what you might call a veil of forgetfulness that is somehow placed over us, placed over our heart, I think, that blocks us from being able to remember that life we lived before. And if we did not have that veil of forgetfulness, I honestly believe we would not be able to stand it in this world for 5 minutes. Because this world is so far from where we were. And I think that deep within the heart of each one of us, what we want more than anything else, without even knowing it, is to get back to where we were before. Now, when you talk about abundance, you see, I believe that because of who we are, because we literally are sons and daughters of God, the creator of the universe, I believe that because of that, we have those innate abilities within us. And I believe that our natural state really is to be in a state of abundance. But what happens to us is we come into this world, and right away we start getting lied to. We start learning things that aren't really true about our existence. But we all come into the world and we're a baby. We don't know anything. All we know is this existence. We don't know where we were before. We have no idea. And then what starts happening is we start developing trapped emotions, see? And we have emotional baggage of grief and sadness and sorrow and on and on and on, frustration and anger. And a lot of those trapped emotions interfere with our ability to really manifest and create the kind of abundance that I think we're capable of creating. You know, I was reading a testimonial recently by a woman. And we actually have a program that we use with the body code. It's called the Blast Away Your Money Blocks for Good Abundance Program, right? And it's a way to use the body code to really figure out what the specific blocks are that are in your way. And you never know what they might be. But anyway, this woman wrote in, she said that she worked on a friend of hers. And she was specifically working on her abundance issues, the blocks in her way. She had been trying to rent a house for a year. The next day, after she was worked on, 3 people called wanting to rent the house. And she was able to get the house rented immediately. She'd been trying to rent it for a year. Think about that. So there's this connection energetically between each of us and between ourselves and abundance. You know, when I was in practice, my office manager and I once a year would pull out all the files of clients who had not been in over the previous year. And we would sit on the floor and put all these folders on the floor, and we would just look at each person's folder for a minute and just think about that person for a second, and then go to the next folder. It didn't take long. But within the next week, 80% of those people would call and make an appointment.
Wow.
Because that connection, that energetic connection is so powerful, and we don't often think about it, but it's very powerful. And it has a lot to do with being able to create abundance, getting out of your own way, getting rid of that baggage, and getting your body in a state where your vibrational level rises. Abundance can start to flow to you in a much more natural way.
You mentioned that you use this with body code, and I'm wondering if we can do a demonstration today. We'll use me as a guinea pig, who I think is doing very well in the abundance category, but all of us can use, I believe all of us can use, at least most of us, can use some abundance assistance, and maybe you can walk us through this.
Okay, absolutely. So basically, first of all, when we're going to work on someone else, and let me explain this, the human body has this amazing ability built right into it to set aside its own needs to act on behalf of someone else. And so what we do is we take a moment, we ask for some help from up above, and then we check to see if we're connected energetically, and usually we are. So I'm going to move this down just a little bit.
And you're checking with muscle testing.
We check with muscle testing, yes, exactly. So give me a moment here, and I'll just ask for some help from up above. All right, so now let's ask, and I'm going to be using this method of muscle testing called the ring and ring method. In the emotion code and the body code, we teach a number of different methods. This is a very simple method, and basically my body will be a little bit stronger if the answer coming from your subconscious mind is yes.
Okay.
And my body will be a little bit weaker if the answer coming from your subconscious mind is no. So the first thing that I want to know is, are we connected energetically here? Or in other words, can I act as proxy for you? And the answer there is yes. So that means that any question that I ask you is going to manifest on my body. So let's see here. All right. First of all, let's ask some questions.
Okay.
All right. Let's ask, are you okay with having abundance? I get a yes on that. That's strong. Are you okay with being wealthy? Oh, I get a no on that one. Now that will short circuit you.
Okay.
What's happening there is that your subconscious mind is responding, saying, well, no, not really. So you have to ask these questions in different ways. But so you're not okay with being wealthy. Let's find out why. It's probably something emotional. Is that true? Yes. Okay. So we can use the emotion code here.
Okay.
And let's just see what we've got. Now, if you go to, you can go to Google Images, you can do a search for emotion code chart, and you'll find, thousands of these. But basically what I'm looking at here is a chart that consists of, actually I can show you one, I think.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, here they are. So the chart looks like this. It's got 60 emotions listed here.
Yeah.
Okay, divided into 2 columns and 6 rows. So what I can do is I can look at this chart and I can ask, do you have a trapped emotion that is interfering with your ability to be okay with being wealthy? And the answer is yes, there's a trapped emotion there. Is it in column A? And your subconscious mind says, no, it's in column B then. So is it in one of the odd rows in column B? Your subconscious mind says, yes, it's strong on my body. Is it in row 1, column B? No. Row 3, column B? It's in row 3, column B. So you can see that's these emotions right here. Okay. So confusion, defensiveness, grief, self-abuse, and stubbornness. Let's see which one it is. So is the emotion confusion? That's weak. That's a no. Is it defensiveness? That's a no. Is it grief? No. Is it self-abuse? No. Is it stubbornness? No, it's not any of those, which means this is actually an inherited emotion. You see, at conception, sometimes we receive emotional energy along with our DNA or their DNA. We receive emotional energy from mom or dad. So is this an inherited emotion? Yes, it is. Is this inherited confusion? No. Is it inherited defensiveness? No. Inherited grief? It's inherited grief. Now, did this come to you from your father? Yes. Did he get it from somebody earlier? Yes. Did he get it from his father? Yes. And did he get it from his father? Yes. Okay. Did he get it from his father? Yes. Okay. So what we're seeing is a pattern. Father, 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 father. Let's ask, does this go back further? It does. How many generations does this go back? Does it go back 20 generations? No. 10? Yes. 15, yes. Wow, this one goes back a long way. 16 generations, 17, 18, 19. This goes back 18 generations. Now, if we figure 18 generations times roughly 23 years for a generation, that's about 414 years. Minus 2017 comes out to about 1603. So, all right, so here we go.
I'm
so
going, I don't remember anything from then, Dr. Brad.
No, but your subconscious mind does. Now, let me tell you something. They've done studies that are just coming out now where they find that if they take a rat, for example, and put it into a maze, and that rat at a certain point in the maze receives a shock or some kind of a fright, if they take that rat out of the maze and it never sees that maze in its life again, and it has children, and those children have children, you can take a grandchild of that rat and put it back into that maze, and as that grandchild of that rat is wandering through the maze, when it gets to a point where it gets to the same point where grandpa was shocked, it'll freeze in its tracks because that memory was somehow passed. Mm-hmm. And that's really what these are. An inherited trapped emotion is an energy. Now, they found that these are passed up to 14 generations in lower animals, and that's the scientific community saying this. What happened with you was all those generations back, one of those grandfathers of yours had a tremendous emotion of grief. That was so significant that energy, that memory energy was shared, that trapped emotion was shared, and it's been shared all the way down to you. Now, what it's doing in your life is that for some reason it's making it not okay for you to be wealthy. And it would be fascinating to go back in time and see what exactly happened with that grandfather. We don't know, but do we need to know any more about this? We don't. So let's release this. And by the way, as we do this, and what I'm doing is I'm taking a magnet, okay? You can use any kind of a magnet, and I'm just swiping from my forehead over the top of my head to the back of my neck. We do this 10 times to release that inherited emotional baggage. Now, if it's not inherited, it just takes 3 swipes, so it's really quick. But we do it 10 times because we're releasing it not only from you, but from your dad, and your grandfather, and your great-grandfather, and all those ancestors all the way back. So let's ask now, did that release that emotion of grief from you? And it did. Did it release from your father? Yes. And from his father. And did it release from all those generations? It did. So if you were to go back all the way back to the beginning of that, and then see how many people could trace their ancestry to that grandfather of yours, a lot of people might have just had that energy released from them, you see.
Cool.
So now we can ask, are you okay with being wealthy? And now we actually get a change. Your subconscious mind says, well, actually, yeah, I am okay with being wealthy. Oddly enough, I wasn't a minute ago, but now I am because we release that energy, see? Do you want to do another one?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. So let's ask, let's see, are you okay with money? Yes. Let's see, are you okay with being rich? Yeah. Are you okay with living in a state of complete abundance? No way. No way. There's the break. See?
Okay.
So you're not okay with that. So let's ask why. Is this something emotional? Yeah. And usually these blocks to abundance are trapped emotions. So we look at our chart like this and we ask, okay, where is this emotion? Is it in column A? No, it's in column B. We just got rid of half the list. One column left, 30 emotions left. It's in column B. Is it in one of the odd rows in column B? No. So that means it's got to be in row 2 or 4 or 6 in column B. That means we have 15 emotions left out of 60. Is it in row 2 in column B? No. Is it in row 4 in column B? No. That means we've got 5 emotions left. It's in row 6, column B. Is the emotion pride? No. Is it shame? Mm-mm. Is it shock? No. Is it unworthy? No. Is it worthless? No. So you see, when the subconscious mind takes you to a certain column and a certain row, and then you cannot determine the answer, what's happening is the subconscious is taking you as far as it can take you without you using that word inherited. It's the magic word. Is this an inherited emotion? Yes. So we're hitting another one here. So is this inherited pride? No. Is it inherited shame? Yes. Inherited shame. Now, shame is the lowest frequency, we believe, of all the emotions. And every emotion has a certain frequency, but shame is the bottom of the barrel. And so that's why when people, sometimes if they're in a state of total abject shame, they'll end their life because there's no lower emotion to gravitate downwards to. Did you get this emotion from your father? No, this one came from your mom. So did she get it from anybody earlier? She did. From her mother? No. From her father. It came from her father. Did he get it from somebody earlier? No. So this one just went back those 2 generations. Your mom got it from her dad. Now, let's ask this question. Do we need to know any more about this? We don't. But the emotion was shame. So there was something that happened in your grandfather's life, your mother's father. At some point in his life, he felt that emotion powerfully enough that it got trapped in his body. A trapped emotion is a little ball of emotional frequency, emotional energy. And when your mother was conceived, his subconscious mind felt it was important. That experience, that energy was important enough to share that with her, kind of like the rat sharing the information about the maze, right? That information was shared with your mom. She shared it with you. And now, Michael, you don't have any kids, do you?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well,
and it's a question I was going to have is how important is it to do clearing work before we have kids? And it's kids' time coming up.
Well, right. What we're doing here is we're stopping this particular energy. It may have been passed down to your children, but we're going to stop that right now.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead now and we'll release this emotion of shame that you got from your mom, that she got at conception from your grandfather. And the process here is actually really, really simple, right? It's really simple, very fast, very easy. But let's ask, did we release that emotion of shame from you? Yes. Did it clear from your mother? Yes. Did it also clear from her father? Yes. Now, your mother, I assume, is living.
Yeah.
Her father's probably passed on.
That's true.
Okay. It doesn't seem to matter whether a person is living or dead. We clear these emotions from them. And in fact, can I share a story with you?
Please.
Okay. I was speaking at a conference, since we're on this topic, and there were about 300 people in the audience. And this woman came up out of the audience. I asked for a volunteer. This woman comes up out of the audience, and she's got this terrific hip pain. It's like a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. It's so bad, she has to manually lift her leg to get in and out of cars. It's so bad. And she's had it for a year. She's seen different people. Nobody's been able to help her. So anyway, I found an imbalance and fixed it, and the pain dropped from a 9 to a 4. And then the next thing that I found was an inherited trapped emotion. I believe it was fear that she'd gotten from her father. He got it from his father, and it went back 12 generations. And one of the things that we do that might sound a little bit strange, but what we have found is that when we are finding and releasing these inherited emotions, the ancestors that have passed on will always seem, those direct line ancestors always seem to show up. And so you can actually test the person that you're working on, and I do. So I had her hold out her arm, and I asked her, I said, are those ancestors here with us right now on the stage? And the answer came back absolutely strong, because her subconscious mind knew they were there. I couldn't see them. She couldn't see them. But we can test for their presence by actually asking and getting a muscle test. So anyway, I went ahead and released that emotion. And suddenly the pain's totally gone. She's dancing around the stage, literally, and so excited. She goes back and sits down, and I finish my class, and then I go back to our booth, and I'm sitting there. And about a minute after I sat down, a woman comes up to the booth, and she said, listen, she said, I was born with this ability to see these spirits that other people don't see. And she said, it's kind of been a blessing and kind of been a curse, but she said, I have that gift. And she said, I want you to know something. She said, when I was sitting there in the audience and you were talking about those grandfathers, all those generations, she said, just like you said, she said, I could see them. They were all there on the stage with you, just like you said. But she said, there was something else going on that I don't know if you were aware of, and I wanted to share it with you. She said, what I saw was surrounding the stage were at least 200 spirits of this woman's unborn descendants.
Wow.
And they were there rejoicing that they were not going to have to take on this crippling energy from her. She said, I saw that, and I wanted you to know what I saw. And so this work is much, much deeper and more profound, I think, than we realize. But I wanted to share that story with you.
Thank you. And that I do a lot of emotion code work on Jessica. I get to do even more on myself, and it's probably a perfect segue here. But now I can see the importance of doing even more clearing work, so to speak, so that there's nothing that has to be passed on to our little ones.
Well, right, exactly. And you could, I mean, the subconscious mind knows everything. So you could even ask, do I have trapped emotions that I need to release that otherwise will be passed on to my kids? You can clear those. You can find those. The subconscious mind knows all of it.
So this time of year in particular, emotions run high, whether it's familial, if it's from an astrological point of view, we can say about Saturn, we can say about Mercury right now. But this time of year, things seem to be bubbling up to the surface in almost everyone.
Sure.
When something specific comes up, can we go and work on that specifically, or do we go to the chart and go in generalities, or is there a way to laser point at that thing?
No, you can definitely ask specific questions. The subconscious mind is really like a search engine in this respect. It's like Google. I mean, if you go on Google and you type in the word you'll get billions of responses, but it will be meaningless. On the other hand, if you go to Google and you type in a very specific search phrase, you'll get good answers. The subconscious mind is the same way. So, for example, let's say that you're going to the family Christmas party and you really have a hard time with Uncle Eddie, okay? What you could do is you could ask a question like, for example, am I okay with Uncle Eddie? And you might get a no. You could also ask, do I have any trapped emotions about Uncle Eddie? And you can release those things, you see, find those and release those, and it can dramatically change how things go at the Christmas party. And so let's say, for example, you had a Christmas party or maybe some kind of family event years ago, and maybe that's what's creating your discomfort now with the family. You can ask, do I have any trapped emotions from the Christmas party in 2001 that was so bad? Yes. What's the emotion? Is it in column A? It's in column B. You find it and release it. So yes, you can specifically go after things in that way. And if you think of the subconscious mind as a search engine, you can ask the questions any way you want.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit. Is there anything more we should know about abundance or abundance with me, or we good on this one?
Well, the last question was, let me think. What was it? It was, are you okay with living a life of total abundance? And actually, I get a yes that you are at this point, see? So oftentimes, oftentimes that's how we like to address abundance, is by asking certain questions just to see what triggers your subconscious mind so that the subconscious mind will give you a no response. Like, no, I'm okay with having a lot of money, but I'm not okay for people to know about it. Or I'm okay with money, but I'm not okay with having any in my bank account. Things like that. Because you never know how it's going to show up.
So it's a wiggly worm, and so it benefits us to ask a bunch of questions and see what we get and ask all the different ways, particularly if, we're doing the work, we're doing our affirmations, we're doing our every law of attraction thing under the sun, and it's just not coming together. It's time to get busy on the emotion code and ask those questions.
Absolutely. The emotion code is so simple, and yet I'm telling you, releasing one trapped emotion can change your whole life. And yet it's so simple. And, I've taught seminars all over the world. I was in Jerusalem a few years ago, and a woman asked me, she said, this just seems too simple. And I said, well, I could make it more difficult for you if you want, but this really is how it is. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's really so simple. And that's what's beautiful about it. Kids can learn how to do it and get great results with their friends. And that's happening now all over the world.
And it is absolutely by far my favorite tool, bar none. It is my go-to. We'll even use it on our kitty cats.
Absolutely. Animals get trapped emotions just like people do. And that's really one of the great proofs of this work, is that it works incredibly well with animals. And just like people, 9 out of 10 times, if they've got behavioral problems or physical problems, you work on the emotions that are around those problems, the emotional baggage, and release it. And the problems just oftentimes just disappear.
So let's talk about setting ourselves up briefly for success in the new year. How can we use this to get ourselves lighter, or help us get more on track, or anything as we step forward through the doorway into an even better year?
Well, it's important to realize that you have emotional baggage. You know, we talk about emotional baggage usually in reference to somebody else, right? Oh, she's just got a lot of emotional baggage, or he's got a lot of emotional baggage. But the thing is, we all have emotional baggage. And if you think about it, you can think of every person that you know, including yourself, as dragging these suitcases full of rocks through your life. And you want to achieve everything you can in your life. You want to create as much abundance as you can. You want to have as much love and as much health and everything that you're capable of obtaining, right, in your life and attaining. The problem is that emotional baggage slows you down. It ties you to the ground, and you want to soar. Well, getting rid of that baggage is so wonderful. The emotion code is just a tool that helps you to come along and just cut loose that baggage. And some of that baggage that might be holding you down might not even be your fault. It might be inherited emotional energies, just like the rat in the maze that you inherited at conception from mom or dad, that they might have gotten at conception from their mom or dad. And like we saw today with you, Michael, sometimes these inherited things are short-circuiting us in the present, because maybe who knows what might have happened in the lives of our ancestors, let alone our own lives.
It's fascinating. I was having a talk recently with my dad, who's miraculously still here with us too, as well, and he was telling me about our ancestors, who I guess grew up, or part of his ancestors grew up in Kiev, Russia, and as Russian Jews, I think weren't allowed to have money and could only have basic possessions, and it was against the law for them to accumulate any wealth, and was telling how painful that was for our ancestors. I wonder how far back that went.
Well, that's really interesting. And think about what we found today. Shame, right? I think the other one was grief. Well, think about this. The nice thing now is a lot of the time you can go to a program like Ancestry.com, and you might actually be able to find out who that emotion originated with, what was going on, maybe where in the area where they lived. It's really fascinating. And yes, I mean, who knows? They weren't able to have money like that. It may be that that emotion of, maybe the emotion of shame was about that. Who knows? But anyway, do you see how your life now is really, it's a manifestation of your own desires, but also your emotional baggage and their emotional baggage. That's your life. It's manifesting all the stuff that's inside of you. Getting rid of those little areas of darkness in your body, those trapped emotions, those inherited emotional energies, enables your body to become more of a body of light. And you get rid of the little areas of darkness in the body, and you're able to start attracting things into your life that you really want. I believe that the natural state, truly, of every person on the planet is to be in a state where they're attracting abundance into their lives automatically. Doesn't mean we don't have to work, because work's part of it. But so many of us work so hard for so many years and try everything, and we still can't create abundance for ourselves. What's that about? That's about baggage. That's what this is for.
How often can we work to remove this baggage? Can we make this as part of a daily routine? Should we give a recovery period? And obviously we can muscle test and find out if we've had enough for the day, but how much is a good session if we're to do this on ourselves?
Well, the body can usually release from anywhere from 8 to 10 trapped emotions in one sitting pretty comfortably, okay? And then if you do that, the body will oftentimes need a day in between before it can go again and release more. But if you just get in the habit of releasing a trapped emotion a day, the average person, we think, has about as many trapped emotions in their bodies as there are days in the year. And some of those are more powerful than others. But as you start working on yourself, imagine releasing a trapped emotion every day. If you did that once a day, in about a year, you're going to be a lot lighter than you were a year before. In fact, that reminds me of a story. There was a man that came to one of our events, and he weighed about 185 pounds. And he got up in front of this room full of 600 people, and he told them a story, how a year before, he weighed 365 pounds. That's what he weighed. He said that during that year, he had tried all kinds of different things to diet and lose weight. But he said that during that year, what made the difference for him is the emotion code. He said that when he would get a craving to eat a plate of brownies or a whole pizza or whatever it was, he'd stop and test himself and ask, okay, do I have a trapped emotion that's driving this behavior, this urge? And he'd find an emotion and release it. And that's all he did. Nothing else changed. And he lost basically the equivalent of a whole nother person during that year. And he looked great at the event, 185 pounds down from 365. Imagine. So there's really almost no limit to the ways you can use the emotion code. And if you're trying to, let's say you're trying to close a deal. Do you have any trapped emotions in the way of me being able to close this deal? Let's say that you've got some big event coming up. Do I have any trapped emotions that might interfere with my ability to have a great event? You can test yourself for all these things, you see, and get rid of your baggage. And it's amazing how you can change. Woohoo is right.
So the question, I mentioned beforehand that Jessica had a question, and I said I've got to make sure to ask her question, which is, if you release the trapped emotion. So for instance, one of the trapped emotions that I've had challenges with and has come back up, and I've worked to do some work on it, I guess there's an awkward way to put it, is around self-worth, or what I call the screw-up gene. So I was gifted with the maybe as a childhood, you've screwed up, Michael. And that bubbles back up now and again. And the question she had is, can we remove the emotional trauma, the wounding, the heart wall behind it, but still have the wiring that causes that pattern to repeat? And what do we do about that, if so?
The thing is, we have these learned behaviors, right? And sometimes what happens is getting rid of the emotional baggage needs a little bit of a boost. And oftentimes what that's about is, oftentimes you can just use some kind of an affirmation to help you to move past that. Sometimes it's about changing the way that we're thinking. A lot of the time, all you need is just to get rid of the emotional baggage. And that will automatically change the way you're thinking and the way you're feeling about things. But sometimes there are certain patterns that have become ingrained in us. And sometimes an affirmation that counters that can really help.
Fantastic. So as we start to wind things down here, I want to put my coaching hat today, take it from me and put it on you so that people will take action, so that they're not just listening today. What one homework assignment would you give people so that they can begin helping themselves today?
Well, I'll tell you what, the best homework I can give you, if you don't have the Emotion Code book, you can get it completely for free and on audio completely for free. And what you do is you go to emotioncodegift.com. You can download the book on audio. You can download the book as an ebook. You can start reading it and listening to it. So there's no block in the way at all about that. It's totally free. So even if you're completely broke, you can still get it. Now, it's an app as well. So you can download the book you can go to the App Store. For Apple, you can download the book. It's an app on your phone. Also for Android, go to the Google Play Store. The nice thing about it is you'll have the entire emotion code chart in there, and you can click on an area. It will zoom in. If you click on an emotion, it'll give you the definition. And the book is in there on audio as well. That's $1.99. Okay. So my homework assignment to you is get the book, read it, listen to it, or both, and allow these ideas to start sinking in and start practicing a little bit. As you read the book, you'll understand, or as you're listening to it, you'll understand what this is about and how this works. This is, I believe, one of the most powerful skills that you can learn. The bottom line is that no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, no matter what sex you are, no matter whether you've graduated from high school or college or elementary school or grade school, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter if you've never had a class in anatomy. It doesn't matter if you know almost nothing about the body. It does not matter. You, no matter who you are, have the gift, the ability to heal other people. You have a birthright that belongs to you to be able to heal other people and to heal yourself. And the emotion code is the simplest way to start to take back that birthright that we all gave up, really, who knows how many generations ago.
Woohoo!
So that's your homework. Woohoo!
Thank you. What would you tell, Jessica always wants me to ask, parents and their kids? How can we begin as parents using this to help our kids?
My gosh, I'll tell you something. I've got 7 kids. I've had 7 kids with my wife. And I cannot even imagine trying to raise kids without having the emotion code. Because as you're raising your kids, they're going through life experiences. They're developing emotional baggage that can ultimately derail their lives. And if the baggage is powerful enough, it can actually end up manifesting as disease later in their lives. Working with your kids on an ongoing basis as they're having issues and releasing the baggage from whatever might have just happened can just change everything about raising them and the kind of family life you can have together. I mean, I've seen very, very angry, belligerent kids turn completely around with the release of some emotional baggage and become friendly and loving. And I mean, it's just, I've seen that kind of thing happen over and over. I've seen kids who were totally on the wrong track, getting terrible grades. I've seen them turn around. And you love your kids and you can help them. This is one of the most powerful tools that's ever been created to help your own children. And of course, at the same time, you can help yourself, help your wife, help your husband, help your parents, help your friends. It's amazing.
Woohoo! I cannot speak highly about it enough. I've got my quite dog-eared copy here. It is literally the book that does not leave my desk unless it's going downstairs to do some emotion code work on Jessica or the kitty cats. It has been so powerful and important in my life. I'm like coddling the book. So I cannot thank you enough. Before we jump into a really brief meditation, any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today?
Well, we're living in a tremendously interesting time. And the earth is in this transformational process right now. And there's a whole new world that's coming, that's trying to be born into this world. But that's not going to happen unless we transform. See, we have to transform. We have to get rid of our own baggage and become beings that are much more beings of light than beings of shades of gray, you see. And those little shades of gray that are inside of you, a lot of that is just your emotional baggage. Finding that and getting rid of that can change everything about your life and what manifests for you in your life. So I would just say in closing, just take the leap. Go to emotioncodegift.com. It's totally free. You got nothing to lose. If you want to put $1.99 down, you can get the app. Of course, if you want the softcover book, it's available at bookstores. You can go to amazon.com. But anyway, it's just been a privilege to be able to connect with all of you today and with you, Michael, and all of you that are out there listening. And this stuff is real. It's amazing. But here we are in the 21st century, and God is giving us this beautiful gift that enables us to change so much about our lives. 90% of all the physical pain that people have is due to their emotional baggage. Think of that. You learn how to do this, I guarantee you'll find situations where you'll have a friend that's in terrible pain and you'll work on them, release some emotional baggage, it'll be gone. You'll look at each other and be in total amazement. But I'm telling you, that'll happen to you if you start doing this. It's real. And by the way, if you're looking for a different career, we've got almost 4,000 certified practitioners of the emotion code now in 68 countries around the world doing this and actually making a living. And sometimes they're making a great living. So there are all kinds of opportunities, but you have to open the door.
So. And you have to open the book.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brad. Would you have a brief meditation you wouldn't mind sharing with people?
Yes, absolutely. So close your eyes and listen along with me.
Unless you're driving the car, then do it later.
Yes, exactly. Good point. So I want you to imagine who you were before you were born. Who were you and where were you? Imagine your life in the presence of your father. And imagine the unconditional love that surrounded you and the beauty of that place. Imagine all the hard work, all the learning, all the study that you put in to get yourself ready to come and experience this life that you are now experiencing. Imagine how excited you were to come to this world. You're here now. What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do to help and heal those around you and to make a bigger difference than perhaps you've been making in this world? It's not too late. There is much that you can do. There are people that need to be served. There are people that need to be helped. Those people surround you. And you can reach out and you can help them and you can be an instrument in the hands of God to do His work in this world. And there's nothing better than doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Thank you so much, Dr. Brad. This has been phenomenal.
Thanks for having me back. This was really fun.
For everyone, thank you. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the emotion code, and begin discovering your abundance today and shine bright. Woohoo! It is such, I cannot say highly enough how important your work is and how much you are transforming lives.
Well, thank you so much. And, I'm just grateful to be here.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!